world? My name is Nicholas Montes, and you're watching my YouTube channel, The Teenage Movie Critic. And welcome back to another YouTube channel, everybody. I'm so excited to have y'all back here again. And in today's video, we're reviewing the next film, the newest big movie, Fast X, the latest Fast and Furious film. So let's go ahead and get started reviewing Fast X. So, before we get onto the bat good, I just wanted to talk about, what are my thoughts going into this film? Because, the last two main Fast and Furious films, I'm not going to really include Hobbs and Shaw, because everybody kind of loves that movie. But going back to the past Fast and Furious films, a lot of people were kind of mixed on those, especially me. I didn't think they were all that great. I had fun with them, tons of fun. I mean, we get to Fate of the Furious, kind of mixed up plot line, but there's a lot of fun in that. But then you get to F9, and definitely a lot of craziness that happens in that movie, but the story and the acting and the choices they decided to make with that movie was just terrible. And it's like, it really felt like the finale, like it was trying to be the finale, but not really. And so, the last two main Fast and Furious films were just weird. This one, I kind of feel like actually went a little bit back to how the Fast and Furious films were done. And I thought that was a good way to form, as this film really is a sequel, is really a next film to Fast 5, which for me is the best Fast and Furious film. Spoiler alert for my Fast and Furious tier list ranking. A video I'll do in a little bit. But I thought that the way that it played out, pretty much the whole scene of Fast 5 when Dom and Brian steal the money from Reyes, and at first in the trailers you're thinking the son of Reyes is the guy that's shooting on the car that knocks them out of the water. At first I thought that's who the guy was. They just didn't cast him as Jason Momoa yet, but he was actually the guy that was controlling the car that was shooting everyone. And so I'm like, okay, probably could have been better. It would have been cooler if he was the shooter, to add a little detail to it, but unfortunately it wasn't. But it was still kind of a cool detail that he was actually part of that day when Reyes got killed. But what exactly is the good of the movie? Of course, it has all of the great action sequences in the movie. It, of course, has all the humor that you want. I think the first standout you want to talk about here with the actors here, of course, Jason Momoa is, of course, easily the best performance of the entire film. He really just throws a lot of just funness to it. Every single reaction he has in the movie, it's like he's just having so much fun with the insanity that he's doing, and it's just so much fun to watch. Like the scene on the bridge, and Dom just literally punched him, and he just throws his tooth at him, and he's like, "You butthole!" I'm like, that's funny. But even in that, even though he's like this very charismatic guy, the stuff that he does feels threatening. As when he says that line, and this is going to lead into my other part of the good on this one, and that is that when he says this line where he's like, he says it in the trailer too, he's like, how do you choose which ones you save? And in the trailer you're like, okay, this is kind of getting me worried as to who's going to die in the movie. And then I start thinking, when you think about when they're about to chase, you're like, oh wait, he's going to have to save one of these two people. And for me, this is the line that I feel like sets up the stakes for what's going to happen in the movie. Because when you get earlier in the movie, it's like, yeah, there's this big bomb that blows up half of Rome. But you don't really feel the stakes in that scene, because no one technically dies. Rome just gets blown up. That's all that happens. So I kind of felt, I felt like intrigued as to how the stakes were done in the movie, that it kind of made you feel a little worried for certain characters in the movie. And that when you have the car blown up and then you almost have the other car blow up, I'm like, this is crazy. I guess you could also say some other performances you want to talk about here. I don't know if we can really count this as a positive or even a negative really, but after, I've been obsessed with Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 and pretty much all of James Gunn's projects in the last 2 weeks. And for some reason, I've noticed a lot of James Gunn and Guardians of the Galaxy and Marvel actors in this movie. I mean, you got Vin Diesel, you got Brie Larson, you got, who else is in here from Marvel and James Gunn? You got John Cena, and then of course you got a newcomer in who, it's the girl that's part of the street racing part. And at first I was like, okay, they're adding too many characters. You're already adding Brie Larson, you're already adding Richardson. Who else is this new character? And when you start to explore her a little bit more, when you find out that she's Elena's sister, I was actually shocked. Now, obviously, we've always had these secret brothers and sisters and these secret family members. That's an extended part of this family. Which, honestly, the family's too big, if I'm being honest. This one, I actually was intrigued by because it actually kind of fit the story. It actually kind of... It's like, because this is kind of like the Infinity War of the Fast and Furious universe, this is kind of like... kind of bringing those characters that we knew from the past films and bringing them in. And I thought she'd work, and I also thought and I was surprised as that she was, the girl that played Ratcatcher 2 in Suicide Squad, as well as Ura in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. So I just saw her in almost 2 weeks in a row. So she's pretty fun, and honestly, she even sounds like Elena because of the accent. I guess you could say some of the newer characters, Brie Larson's character was fine. I thought she played a good enough role. I thought the little interactions between the kid, between Dom's son and John Cena's character, in between Uncle Jacob, I thought that was pretty fun. Especially during that action scene, I thought was pretty great. Though that was like the only action scene. I guess some other things you want to talk about here. Obviously, I love that fight between Cypher and Michelle Rodriguez, or Letty versus Cypher. I thought that fight was amazing. And this is the film where I feel like Cypher gets a lot of great action moments. I remember I saw Atomic Blonde about a year back. It's about to be a year since I've seen it. And one of the things I was really impressed with was the stuff they did with the action of Charlize Theron. And this was like this. I think this was the same year when Fate of the Furious came out. We didn't really see anything of action based with her, but the fact that we kind of got to see more of the action side of Cypher was a lot more enjoyable. So I really enjoyed that fight. Granted, I kind of am sad that no one got killed, or we didn't really see who won. They just crashed in the ice or in the glass, but it was still a great fight. Another great thing is that there's a lot of similarities between this movie and Guardians 3, as it's basically a family movie. As you have this scene where you have Tej and Roman on the plane, and the whole thing as they're separated. Actually, let me introduce something else. The other great thing about this movie is that it really does have this Infinity War storyline feel. As it's the second to last one of the franchise, sort of, because it's they said it's also going to be a trilogy now. And I thought the way the story fit worked perfectly. You have Dom on his own mission, Letty on his own mission, the 4 characters over here. You have John Cena and the other characters. They all fit well together in separating them. And you have this thing where Roman is leading this other group, and he's like the leader of the Roan group. And he thought he let everybody down, but Tej is like, you did all this. You're still a great leader. Dabs him up, but still jokes with him because that's what family does. And honestly, that fit perfectly in the movie, as they are a family. But what also works about the family aspect is that, what also works about the Infinity War relatability aspect is the whole cliffhanger. Because much like Infinity War ends off with a big cliffhanger, doesn't resolve the story, this one ends with a big cliffhanger, and it's crazy. Where most of these characters got sacrificed, they died, and now we don't know how we're going to get out of this. So, I'm very excited to see what they're going to do with the next movie. if we're gonna who's gonna live, who's gonna die. I'm kind of sad that we're not getting one until 2 years later, but I was intrigued by that. And then also there's speaking of the action again, let's talk about the action again. There was this one shot that I really loved when Dom is racing down the dam and that you have that big explosion behind him, and the fire's like coming into the car and it's surrounding baby little B and Dom, and like this is like the this is cinematic badass moment, and it like goes into all the car parts, and this is cinematic car stuff. I love this. It's like this kind of felt like almost superior Fast and Furious. This was awesome. And also, I love that. I think the other part I'm probably gonna end with the good on this one, or I think maybe second and last. I love the way that Dante really had a lot of moments, where Dante had a lot of moments of that he wasn't just going after the family, like his main family that we see throughout all the films. He's going after everyone that's helped them. So you think of Shaw. He's going to go after Shaw's mother, so that's why he goes and leaves to go fight these people to protect his mom. When you think about the other family, just all these different people, it's crazy. And I think it makes sense as to why everyone is coming back into this one, and it makes sense. So I personally really liked that. And then, of course, I'm thinking I'm going to end on the last one. We got the return of Dwayne Johnson. Now, I will say this. There's kind of some issues I have with that. Even though I was so glad to see him back. He had a perfect line. And it kind of sets of what's going to happen in the next movie, which I'm really excited for. So, yeah. The Rock's back in the franchise. I can't wait to see him again. Hopefully, we get more of him, and he does come back in the second one, and we get more. Hopefully, if John Cena comes back, because I'm pretty sure he will, hopefully we get another fight between Jacob and The Rock. That would be awesome. Alright, now let's move on to the bad. Alright, so when it moves on to the bad, it kind of has some of my issues that I had with some of the other Fast and Furious films. Obviously, ever since, I feel like Fast 5, when it turned to this action franchise and they're trying to do all this stuff, it's always gone crazy with Fast 5 basically having two cars, holding a safe of money and destroying cars with it, or police cars with it through Rio. 6th film, you get cars stopping tanks, also on a plane. Furious 7, you got cars crashing through buildings, plus going through the woods. 8th film, you got them riding on ice. And then the 9th film, it kind of goes the craziest, where you're having a car swinging on a vine like Tarzan, magnet cars, and then cars going to space. This one, I will say, it dims down on what exactly is reality. I mean, obviously you have a car trying to stop a nuclear bomb that's about to blow up, but also kind of has a nuclear code. And then you also have a car driving down a dam, trying to get away from fire. That's a little bit unrealistic, but it's fun. With this one, I feel like probably my problem with it just kind of feels like the characters probably shouldn't be surviving things. It's like you shoot off Brie Larson, she's still alive, and you kill off the other guy, and it's not that great. Also, the part about that, as you thought he was on his side, but you realize not everyone's going to be on your side. You think everyone's going to be on your side. And the way that it kind of correlates the whole Fast and Furious franchise, that these characters have joined this family, the family just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Kind of cool. But it's not the best one. I think the first problem I really have with it is just the way they transition certain scenes. I was not a big fan of that. It's like they did it in such a very weird way. I wasn't a fan of that. It's like it's like some of the shots in here just kind of feel like trailer shots. They don't feel like they should be in the actual movie. Other thing you gotta kind of talk about here is I feel like it needed a little bit more time to breathe to have those great moments of, funny, serious moments. And it almost felt like because it almost felt like you had too much going on. Where I feel like for example, with Infinity War, the reason why it worked is because we all love these characters. But with this one, it's like these characters know each other, and it kind of distracted us from having a main story and actually just interacting with characters that we've never seen interact before, which is why that movie worked so much, at least for me. With this one, it's like it kind of didn't really balance it all that well. And most of it was kind of like, once Thor arrives in Wakanda, you kind of have only 2 groups. And this one, you have like 4 multiple groups until Jacob shows up. So then you have like 3 groups. So, yeah. I think the other thing that I want to talk about here is really just the usage of certain characters. Jason Statham was teased a lot in the trailers, and he's not even in the movie that much. He shows up for like a fight scene to fight Han, then he fights some soldiers, and then once he realizes that his mom is targeted as one of the targets for Dante, he just goes off and never shows up again. I'm like, okay, he's going off, he's bringing everything, but he's not going to bring the team with him, he's not going to use the family's help. I'm like, this would have been the right time to do that. I guess not. But that's how I feel about that. And then also, Brie Larson's character, she's barely in the movie. She shows up, even the whole agency betrayal plotline, I just thought was awful. Like, where was Mr. Nobody? He was in charge of this whole plotline. Where was he? Like, what? And what happened to the other character that was part of the agency? Where was he? So it's like, this whole plotline was just weird to me. And then also just the whole tease of The Rock. First off, I don't think they should have announced him coming back in it. I feel like, it just was a bad excuse to do it. They should have just put him in the next movie and not teased him at all. They should have announced that he's going to be in the next movie instead of announcing that he's going to be in the end credit scene. Otherwise, it just spoils the whole thing of the end credit scene. But the main thing about this thing is, I didn't like the way they did the end credit scene because, we knew, the whole reason why he's killing them is because his dad was betrayed. They stole his money. But you gotta think back. Sure, Dom stole his money, but the actual person that killed Hernan Reyes was actually Hobbs. He's the actual killer of this, not Dom. He was the one that pulled the trigger. And so I'm thinking back to all of this. Why wasn't he just going after Hobbs? Like, you decide to kill off Dom, but you don't kill off Hobbs? I mean, I understand, but wouldn't you want to go after the person that actually killed your father? Don't you? Why do you? It's like you care more about the money than the actual person that avenged your father. Like, that's kind of dumb if I'm being honest. Granted, I'm glad that he's going to come back in the next movie. I cannot wait. I'm excited to see what's coming next. And I think the last issue I'm going to talk about here is just probably the usage of comedy in the transition scenes. I like the comedy, but I also feel like, was it done at the right time? That's the big question I really have. But overall, the movie's pretty good. I'm not going to say it was the best Fast and Furious film, but it is definitely up there as my top 5, is my 5th favorite one. You'll see my tier list, of course. But it is definitely a good movie. Not top tier, most definitely not. I mean, it's in my 5th favorite movie of all time. It's in my 5th favorite movies of this year, but that's not saying much. I haven't seen a lot of great movies this year, but it is still good. So that's pretty much my review for Fast X. Before I give my final score, be sure to tell me down below what are your thoughts on Fast X. Did you guys love it? Did you guys hate it? Or in between? Let me know all your thoughts down in the comment section below. With that said, let's get on my scores. Alright, so that's it for my scores. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. All my social media stuff is in the about section over there. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.